Hi there, this is Dan and Jim with Food Storage Guys, and today we are going to talk about inflation.
Dan, do you know what inflation is?
Yeah, I do, Jim, but why don't you tell us more about what it is?
All right. It seems like the prices of everything are going up these days, and people refer to that as inflation, but actually it is not prices going up, it's the value of the dollar going down. And probably the easiest way to explain inflation so everybody can understand it is let's take a hypothetical economy of 100 apples. In that same economy, we have $100. So, Dan, what is an apple worth in an economy that consists of 100 apples and $100?
Oh, about $1.
That's right. Each apple is worth $1. Now let's inject another $100 into that same economy. So now we have $200 and 100 apples. So what is the value of an apple?
That'd be $2 then.
That's exactly right. So that, in a nutshell, is what inflation is. It is the increase in the volume of money in the economy. And it appears that the price of things are going up when in actuality it's the value of the dollar that's going down. And
yeah, that makes sense.
Since the Federal Reserve was established in 1913, I'm not sure of the current value, but I've heard that the value of the dollar today is 3 cents of a 1913 dollar.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So in my lifetime, I've seen some massive inflation. I was talking with you a little while ago about when I was 12 years old, I could buy a big hamburger, fries, and a shake, and my check came and it was only 65 cents. I left a dime tip and walked away with a quarter from my $1 that I walked into the restaurant with. Today, that same burger, fries, and a shake is going to cost closer to $20. So that is inflation. We've injected that much money into the economy, and the amount of goods has not increased. So we've got inflation. And today, in 2021, we seem to be suffering some pretty strong inflation. In fact, the Consumer Price Index is up 5% year on year.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of things that we need on a daily basis that have increased in price, or they seem to have increased in price through inflation. And with the insertion of something like $6 trillion that the current government is putting into the economy, I expect to see even more.
Yeah, I think Biden's package is going to be 1.9 trillion. That'll be an additional national debt right there. I think that's still coming.
Well, I think they keep pumping money into this system, and it's going to have to be paid back at some time. And I don't see how it's going to be paid back in our lifetimes. So I'm guessing that we're adding debt to our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren if this government lasts that long.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about bonds being purchased, 30-year bonds that would defer the cost, having to repay this national debt, the money that's being spent right now. And so, 30 years down the road, all this will be coming to need to be paid back at that point.
The problem is that the foreign governments aren't buying bonds from America any longer. And so the only way for the government to pay back that debt is to pay it back with inflated dollars. And there's no other way for them to deal with this. So let's just talk about a few prices that we're seeing jump up in the recent months. Have you got any examples, Dan?
Yeah, I've noticed, just the price of gas. I'm sure you and other people have noticed that the price has gone up here recently, and from last year, it's gone up like 50%. So that's, significant increase that a lot of people are having to pay every week, and
The
maybe
problem
even a
is that
couple
the
times a
foreign
week
governments
having
aren't buying,
to pay that increased price.
right? To put it in dollars and cents, that means that gasoline a year ago was $1.98 a gallon, average across the United States, and the national average today is $3.05.
Yep. So half of what it used to be increased.
That is a significant increase.
So what else have you seen, Jim, increase that's significant?
Well, food is something that we all need to buy every day, and just to sustain our health. And the overall food prices are up 3.6% year over year. For meat eaters, I know that you don't eat meat, Dan, but I do. And pork is up 4.8% year over year, and beef is up 3.3%.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned earlier, overall food prices are up 3.6%, 2021 over 2020.
Yeah. And people aren't eating more or less, so you can tell it's not just a demand problem. It's there's definitely maybe more of a supply issue.
Well, and that makes sense because of the COVID-19 restrictions and the shutdowns. So many businesses went out of business because they were forced to close down, and a lot of other businesses, what were termed essential businesses, couldn't get enough workers to go in, or they had different issues. They were unable to produce as much as normal. So the supply of a lot of products is low, and yet the demand has either remained the same or actually right now in 2021 is increasing.
Yeah, and as people are getting their vaccines and feeling more comfortable going out to restaurants and spending more money and just buying things, a lot of the demand is increasing quite a lot here in the last month or so, and that means that the services and the goods that they're buying are being strained as far as companies producing them are trying to keep up and having a big difficulty doing that. Even remember last year, Jim, we had a super increase in storable food, and trying to keep up with that was very difficult.
It certainly was. Last year was a very difficult time to keep up with the demand for storable food because people were panicking, and they seem to wait until there's an issue that's going on in their life that tells them, hey, I better store up some food and buy some storable food. And yet the prices went up, but they waited until it was scarce before they bought it. And so we could hardly fill the orders last year.
Yeah, I noticed, right about March or so, I was thinking that the price of gas was going to go up significantly. Everything else was kind of being hard to get. And so thought, well, this would be a good time to, get to store some fuel. So I went and bought, maybe 15 gallons or so of gas and store that. And then like the week later, it actually went down. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I really didn't need to do that. But I still have that fuel. And now that the price of gas has gone up, that was actually a good investment. Think about when prices are down to really fill up on things and get the food or the fuel that you need that can be used later when the prices are low before they go up. So I think now as we're seeing this acceleration is increasing on consumer prices, and so if you can get what you need ahead of time, a year from now or two, when inflation is even more, be in a good place. So you can hang on to your money more easily if you invest in things now that are things that you can use later.
Yeah, we were just looking at that graph of consumer price index, and it was kind of frightful to see the line almost vertical, and just about 5% right now for the CPI for 1 year for 2021. And it doesn't seem to be slowing down. It looks like it's going to continue rising.
Next month we may see 8% or even up to 10%. There has been periods in the past, like in the 1950s and back in 1918 or so, we inflation can easily go to 20%, and that's not a situation you want to find yourself in.
More recently, the 70s were an incredibly inflationary period, and gasoline was going straight up then too. Food prices, everything was inflating crazy during the 70s after Nixon took us off the gold standard internationally. And a couple other things that are just going crazy right now are the price of used cars. They're up 7.3% this year. And the price of lumber is up 400% this year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So housing and anything that you need lumber for is going crazy. So, Dan, what can we do about this?
Well, like I was saying, giving the example of the, buying gasoline and, storing it for a while, if you can hold on to something like that, the price is going to be higher next year. Gasoline goes up and down, but, food prices are continually increasing over time. And so one of the things that you can use to hang on to value is food, especially commodity foods, like beans and rice and things like that, and vegetable items that are preserved in a way that will hold their value and can be used 10, 20 years from now.
That's true. A lot of people talk about gold and silver, and I agree with them. Buying precious metals is really a good way to preserve your wealth, and a lot of people put a certain percentage of any wealth that they have into precious metals, and recently that seems to be a smart thing to do. However, the price of silver and gold is manipulated and kept down falsely, but there will come the day when it explodes, and anybody that's put their money there is going to be happy that they did, because they will be able to preserve their wealth with that. I don't think that it should be considered to be a money-making adventure. I think it's more just preserve what you have and preserve the spending power of what you have. But Dan, you can't eat gold.
That's right. And we notice that when everything's shut down or there's shortages of things, no matter how much money you have, sometimes you can't get a hold of them.
And food is the thing that before you invest in gold and silver, I think you should have at least a 1-year supply of food for every member of your family, especially because the food we're talking about is storable food. It lasts for up to 25 years. And so you can hold it against a time when food becomes more expensive, or where we face some kind of a catastrophe, like an EMT that would shut down the grid for a period of time, or even hurricanes or tornadoes, or any kind of a situation, emergency that happens, and those happen on a fairly regular basis. If you have storable food put aside, you can feed your family even when the grocery stores are empty.
Yeah, that's right, Jim. And, we're seeing a lot more earthquakes, fires, floods, all kinds of stuff. And that's, even in the Bible it talks about that increasing over time as, Christ is coming. And so we need to realize that the natural disasters are only going to get worse. And when there's earthquakes, that can affect, the power grid and many other aspects, the sewer system and things like that, and the water supply. All these, when earthquakes destroy some of the infrastructure, those don't just come back immediately the next day. They take a long time to repair. And as we're seeing more and more faults throughout the United States and around the world, is, we see a lot of nations just devastated by some of these natural disasters, and it takes years and years for them to recover. And that can happen here too.
There's nothing that makes us immune from it, that's for sure. And I think that our grandparents would never have imagined being unprepared. They always had a 6-month supply of food put away in case of drought or something like that. In fact, I'm trying to find in my computer someplace, I have some writings by my great-grandmother who lived through some of the devastations of locusts and things like that in the Great Plains back in the 1870s. She wrote a journal, and I've got that. Maybe we should if I can find it, we'll bring it into one of the future podcasts. But,
yeah, that'd be interesting to hear at some point.
Yeah, she talks about the locusts destroying their crops and how they had to survive until they could grow new crops, and they didn't have any food coming in for considerable periods of time, which is why our grandparents and great-grandparents would never have considered being without some kind of a food storage. And they were into canning, they were into all kinds of things that would store food for extended periods of time. And basically, we're still using the same methods of storage, dried or canned, or different options that we have to store food for long periods of time. And at Food Storage Guys, we sell that food, and we advise everybody take advantage of it now while there's not a panic. Otherwise, you're going to wait months before you can get it delivered. So
Yeah.
get your food storage now, and then think about taking the rest of taking the rest of your valuable money and putting it into something that's solid, like gold or silver or real estate or something solid, because the dollar is going down. It's not going to be worth very much compared to what it's worth today.
That's right.
The value of our dollar is being destroyed, so invest it in something that can last, and usually that means hard goods. But before you put it into gold, silver, real estate, cars, or things like that, our recommendation is that you put away some food for your family.
Even if 5 years from now you decide, yeah, well, I guess I really not going to need it for the future, hey, you can start using the food. The food is not some dishes that you may not like, or things that your family won't eat. These are basic food items, like corn and peas and green beans and things that everyone can use at any point in their life.
They're great too. And one thing that I recommend, Dan, is that people that do store food don't just put it away in a corner someplace and leave it for 25 years and nothing happens, they don't need it, or until they need it they just don't even think about it. It's better than not having it at all, but it would be smarter to get to know that food and that supply by using it on a fairly regular basis and then replenishing it. So eat from that food supply, get used to cooking from dehydrated food stores, and then learn how to use it. Find out what is your favorite kinds and reorder that.
Yeah, that would have been really helpful last year when a lot of people everything was shut down and people were told to stay home and quarantine. Having a food supply right there where you don't even have to go out. You can just open up a bucket or a container and get exactly what you need.
I know that works for me.
Yeah, my family has been storing food for enough for a year for a long time, and we keep using on it. And as it's a very economical way as well to buy in bulk. And so you can think of this as just another way to buy in bulk, where you can get a lot of what you need and use it up, and then you can replenish it, and it's fresh, how to use it. And I think that's good advice, Jim.
Well, and the biggest thing I think is to buy it now while there isn't a panic.
Yeah.
Because as we saw last year, when there was a panic, shipping was 2 months to get things out. And so people that needed that had a 2-month wait.
Yeah.
And then, when things start to normalize a little bit, the orders slow down again. That just doesn't make sense. You should be using it on a regular basis, and you should make sure that you have your year's supply before the panic.
Yeah, I think a wise person looks for the times where things are less expensive and also there isn't a panic for them, and buys then. And then when there is a panic, they can rest knowing that they have what they need, and everyone else can panic and worry, and they can have confidence and peace.
Well, one thing we talked about, Dan, a few weeks ago is putting together a package of bread making that includes a wheat grinder and wheat berries and yeast and the things like that. So maybe we'll get that package together. The next podcast, maybe we can talk a little bit more about other methods, other things that you need for survival besides food. You're, of course, going to need water, and you're going to need water purification. You need to be able to use the bathroom without having water to flush it. And who knows what could happen. We want to be prepared for any kind of an emergency. So in our next podcast, we'll talk a little bit more about other ways to prepare for catastrophe.
Yeah, sounds great, Jim. I know I've talked with a lot of customers that don't even think about some of the easy methods that they can use to provide for their needs. And so I think that would be very helpful to a lot of people.
And a lot of the tips that we have are not just about buying things from us. We have some good tips of survival ideas that are very simple and easy to take care of on your own at your local grocery store. So tune in for the next podcast and we'll go into some of those.
Okay, Jim. Well, good talking with you, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Sounds good, Dan. Talk to you soon.
Head on over to foodstorageguys.com to see all of our options to help you prepare for an uncertain future. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the thumbs up on this video if you like this show. If you have any questions or comments about this topic, please leave them in the comments below. And if you thought this information was helpful, be sure to share this show with your friends and family.